Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. Tonight is Monday, December 7th, 2009. It's on or about 7 p.m. This evening, City Council will be holding two public hearings, or I guess one public hearing with two different subjects, something like that. And then at 7:30, we will be going into a regular session of City Council. The first public hearing is to discuss the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program. We do have a sign-in sheet going around, and if we could ask everybody that is present tonight to sign the sign-in sheet, we'd appreciate it. Mayor Weil, what would you like to say about this?
Okay, this is a public hearing for our bus system. This is the grant under a USC section 5311F, ODOT. This is essentially to put buses into rural areas. It is Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program. Its objectives are to support connection between non-urbanized and large regional centers of the national system of intercity bus system, to support service to meet intercity travel needs for residents of non-urbanized areas, being us, and to support infrastructure between those networks. This is a little bit different animal. We have an intercity bus system right now, which is lakefront, going from Athens to Columbus. What they've done is they've rolled this over to adding three other routes and packaged it. The three routes will go to one to Athens to Cincinnati, Athens to Columbus, Columbus to, I believe, Mount Vernon, and Columbus to Worcester. We are going to try for the Athens to Cincinnati, Athens to Columbus. This is a 50%, it's essentially a pass-through. It has to be awarded to a government or a nonprofit. It covers 50% of the cost of the bus system. The other match actually is going to be matched through Greyhound, because it's going. If your time is correct, it'll be connected with Greyhound. Again, it's all passed through. We don't see any of this money, but we get a bus system. We do see some of the money in terms of operating costs for our ticket taking at the community center. They have made us aware that they would like to see us have somebody who manages it, which would mean hiring somebody, and they would cover 80% of that. The conversation I had with Charlene, who's actually looking at this, the process is right now is that we will have the deadline, of course, is December 11th. The awarding will be the 15th. And then at that point, we'll create an RFP to put it out to the other various bus companies, the for-profit bus companies, including Lakefront and Fun Bus and whoever comes wants an RFP. In that RFP, we could actually build in the other 20%. So we'll have to do that if we want to go forward with this. There's no guarantee we'll get it. We could job out the entire thing, including the administration of it. They almost imply that's not a competitive move. The piece of paper I gave you out in front of you, which is the Exhibit F1, is an operating budget looking at the administration. If you look at the first column there, the 501 labor, basically we were talking about putting a full-time administrator in there, again funded, as well as the ticket sales, which we already do. If you go all the way down to the opposite page, you'll see it's $130,000 total for various things. Actually, that includes rental, leases, etc. Again, this would all be 80% matched, and if we put that into the roll-up of the RFP and we get somebody who applied for it, we're good to go. The total of funding we're estimating to cost to run the two bus systems is about $800,000. Right now, our cost to Lakefront is about $300,000 to go between Columbus and Athens. At this point, if you do the mileage, I think it's almost like twice the mileage. It's like $290 to Cincinnati. And so we just doubled it up or tripled it up and took a little bit off for fixed costs. So we're talking about maybe $800,000. Again, this will all be what we get goes to Lakefront, and any deficit they either make up or, in this case, a commitment from Greyhound to actually fund leverage their portion of it. So it's a pretty nice mix. There are 6 buses in the mix, which is why we're having a public hearing, because that's part of this stimulus package and requires a public hearing. Questions? Go ahead.
6 buses, how often do they run these various routes?
Well, the 6 buses are actually going to be spread among 4 routes. If we get 2 of the routes, we'll probably get at least 3 of the buses. So the timing would be, let's see, I think it would be about 4 times a day coming through Athens. 2 going back and forth. Actually 2 per route, so it's about 8 times a day, if I'm reading this correctly. Schedule route between Athens and Cincinnati is that there would be, it looks like arriving in Athens at 7:30 and leaving at 7:50 and coming back at 14:50. What's that? That'd be about 3 o'clock. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're using military time. 14:50, whatever that is, military. 2:50? Okay. 2:50.
3 o'clock is a good.
Yeah, well, it leaves at 15:10, so that's 3 o'clock. That's why I was trying to do the average. So, questions on that? So, we have a route already that goes to the community center. We do charge for the ticketing there. We actually write that off in the present operating budget, which Nancy had just asked before the meeting. It's about $58,000. That includes some of Shara's time, some of the recreation and community center's time as well. Go ahead.
And who would be the employee that's hypothetically here under 50102 would be of the bus company?
It might be ours. It should be ours, actually. They would like to see it ours.
Okay. Will they pony up enough for benefits also?
I think it's 80% of everything, gross. I mean,
Okay,
total.
because I was looking at,
If you look down, fringe benefit
benefit
personnel, the
distribution.
30,337.
do you envision this being an existing employee taking a different distribution?
No, I think we'd have to hire somebody.
Okay.
I know, that kind of speeds it up. We do have in a staffing position an executive secretary in my office. This would actually, I would like to see this kind of glom over and cover more of the transportation in general, because we have the Athens Transit bus system as well. And I do want to mention that, but first I guess we should take public notices on this. Other questions? Nancy?
I just wanted to know how much, so it would be in our times, our wage scale, not this one necessarily, right?
This, I believe, is our wage scale, isn't it?
Is there, well, it doesn't, I couldn't see.
29.7?
Yeah, is it really that level, 29.7? I don't know.
I'd have to go to staffing ordinance. I think it is.
Okay. Oh, so there's 2 of them there. I just saw that.
Well, one is ticket sales personnel. That's already on the books, the recreation staff.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And really, those are the people already employed just there taking the tickets.
Okay.
We have a program, I guess, on one of the computers that marches it through the internet.
And up until now, it's not been a problem.
No, to my knowledge, it hasn't.
People get on the treadmill just as fast.
I think it runs off diesel and not turbo.
So I just thought somebody didn't have to wait because they were buying a ticket and didn't know what they were doing.
I don't know.
Never heard anybody complain. I've heard other complaints, though.
It's such, I don't know. How many people actually, I tell you the truth, I don't know anybody who takes a bus up to Columbus. I don't know.
I would have to think that this is vast majority of Ohio University students. And have we done any type of survey to see how many are interested in a route to Cincinnati? Or has anything like that been?
I think there has been interest expressed before, and Gordon has brought this up at the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting, so definitely. And it is, you're right, the majority of students riding between Athens and Columbus now, or the majority of them are students.
Yes.
Parents, apparently, when they contact the bus lines, interested to find out before they come here. And in fact, I've actually taken someone to the dorms, and they've said, I'm from Cleveland, how's my daughter going to use public transportation to get home? So definitely an interest in it.
When I was a student here, I used the Greyhound bus many times to get home to Cleveland.
Back in the day.
I used to do it to New York, yeah.
Yeah.
And from Marietta to New York. Although I tell you the truth, I hitched faster.
If you got on a local, you did.
Yeah.
You absolutely did.
If I'm looking at their projected for...
Yes.
Different times.
I'm sorry, Paul.
The projected for 2010 we have is about 3,700 passengers between Columbus and Athens total. We don't know what Cincinnati is going to look like, and that's, I think, one reason why they would like to see an in-house person market it. The conversation I had with somebody like Lakefront, who, as I say, is just part of the bidding process. There's no guarantee they will get it. They always assume that that's part of their job, actually. But the conversations I've had with ODOT is that they think it should be our job. And again, that's why I don't want to take on all 4 bus systems. The 2 that are coming out of Columbus and don't go anywhere near us is not worth the trouble from my point of view. And again, it's a bid. We may not get it. This is part of the ordinance 13909 that we're pushing through. And as I say, this is the public hearing that's required for it.
Were there other council member comments before we ask the public to participate in their public hearing? Are there any audit? I'm sorry.
One other
Member
budget
Nisler.
question on
Yes.
page 2, under 509.08, the advertising promotion. It says it covers brochures, schedules, and also personnel. Is that going to allow us to maybe contract out some of the advertising?
I thought it was, well, I'm surprised it's because it says personnel. I assumed it was mostly schedules and brochures.
That's what I would have thought
Yeah.
too, but just a clarification.
I think part of the issue is how we go about contacting their routes they were discussing covers, for instance, right now, the establishment for Athens, basically, they're looking at, they just pick some arbitrary places, Nelsonville, Logan, Lancaster, which makes sense. The other one going to Cincinnati, they're picking Jackson, Piketon, Peebles, Westchester, Mount Arab, and Batavia as some of the examples. But really what it will require is somebody contacting these cities saying, do you have a place to park a bus? And a ticket place, and then putting advertisement in local means. Again, I think most of the bus systems would do that just because they know where they want to go. On the other hand, we have to have somebody to actually, touch base with us on that and administer that. Does that answer your question? The brochures, I think, would be part of ours, but I don't see a lot of it being, it would be not a lot of price to get that once you get it established.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Other comments?
There is one other.
From the audience. Paul, I've got one other. If I'm understanding correctly, we're looking at a 20% match.
Yes, for the administration.
But then when I look down and
It says
see
50%.
community center rent that brings in $26,000.
Yeah, we're talking about space that they use. Essentially, we're really talking about this was put together when Melissa was here. Essentially, they were talking about the space on the counter for the computer, but actually you have people coming in and dropping their baggage there for a duration. So that's been part of it as well.
But when I look at that number, that's really better than a wash on the 20% match if we want to think of it that way.
Yeah, we do have to, justify it. I think we worked that out when Melissa was here because we went through the numbers with Rich Campitelli at the time.
Are there any other comments? Yes.
There's another item I do want to mention. We had a public hearing last August, if you remember, about the rate increases for our bus systems. This is the intercity bus system, our Athens Transit. And I just want to reiterate, we will be increasing that. I just want to let you know. Again, this is not really the public hearing for it, but this is the second time we've done it on a slow day, slow month.
And it's a significant increase, percentage-wise.
Yeah, we're going to go up from $1 to $1.50 for the cash fare. The 30 ride fares will go up from $17.85, and this is full fare, to $25. We have reduced for elderly and disabled. The reduced fares of 50 cents will go up to 75. For the 30 ride, will go from 8.40 to 12. Let's see. There's also a 90-day pass you have out there. This will be it'll go from 45 to 60. The reduced fare of that, of course, will go from 22.50 to 30. This represents, on the day fares, it's a 50% increase. On the 90 days, it's about a 33% increase. On the 30 ride, it's about a 40% increase. I believe the last time we did this was, I had that number with me, but I don't remember right now. It's been quite a few years, though.
It took me aback to see the percentage increase when I saw that memo, that thinking, is this really a green thing to do, to increase daily rates or daily ride by 50%. Help me out. Can we have more
again,
justification?
the Finance and Personnel Committee, Nancy in particular, and Jim pointed out that we've been subsidizing it to a certain amount of money every year.
Absolutely true.
Historically, I didn't realize that most of it is coming out of the transportation, the 220 fund. We are still short. We will be short again this year. Where to take it out of, I mean, we could always dream up places, but it still costs us. All bus systems will cost a certain amount. The question is, how do we want to fund it? As far as I know, there's no bus system in the United States that does not cost the city some money. You just can't run the rates for that, and the maintenance of the buses is just too high. We have yet to negotiate our contract with McDonald's yet. It'll be a little bit different. I know the rate, I think the discussion we're having right now is going to be about 2.5 to 2.6% increase for our rate. We're usually getting charged by the hour, operating hour, which is lower, but again, that includes the gas costs and everything like that, and we have a reduction of hours, but they've kind of dovetailed their operating hours of Summit with ours, so there's a fixed cost for operating in the city, and therefore we're both getting kind of a subsidy for it. Both Summit and Coast run with a reduced rate and us because we're working with the same company. We'll probably need to, when we renegotiate that contract, I'll probably need authorization. Speaking of which, for the lakefront, if we want to continue this past January, I'll probably need authorization to extend that contract right now, because they won't get the new contract and the RFP's rolling to mid-February. To jump back to the transit system, we have reduced hours because we didn't take on Courtyard and we didn't take on Summit. But we'll still have some costs. I forget what the total is right now. We're still negotiating. We'll also add probably a charge for our bus garage, which there's nothing in the lease about rent or who's in charge of maintenance of it. It's never been, it came up as a point when we started discussing insurance on the building. And it's like, okay, there's not one word about the bus garage in our leases right now. So we'll probably charge a nominal fee for the rent of that. Mostly because at that point, if they're going to be servicing Summit buses in there, we need to be it's got to cost them. We can't be doing that for free. Okay, and that's a little off topic, but the fact is the rate increase has to do with trying to make it a little bit closer to the black, but nowhere near in the black.
Yeah. Are we planning on, seeing a price elasticity? By that I mean, as the price go up, ridership goes down?
Yes, it is. According to Lou May, who's representative of McDonald, he would expect like a 3 to 5% decrease in ridership, but it's not always linear because there's always people who need to ride the bus.
No matter.
Yeah.
It's still cheaper than anything else.
Yeah.
And our ridership rates have gone up 12%, where nationally other bus systems riderships has gone down. So,
yeah.
It doesn't dispute the fact that we might see a decline, but we're still ahead of most of other cities.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is interesting. Actually, I think he said some of the smaller cities have had a slight increase, but we're about the biggest increase in ridership he's seen in his. And this is always good to talk to somebody who's seeing the whole spectrum out in the country and the United States. I think he said it was 12.5 for the year, which is good. The thing is, it's still costing us money. The fare box never really makes it all up.
Yeah. Other comments before we move on to the next subject? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this subject? Okay. Our next subject is to amend the zoning code to change gardening and domestic animals from conditionally permitted uses to permitted accessory uses. Mr. Butler, why don't you start with this one? Or Paul, did you? Okay.
No. It's you can do it.
Well, thank you.
We don't get to hear enough from a council member down on the end here, so.
Okay, I will want to pass around that sheet again, since we have 2 sign-up sheets, one for each.
Please do.
Can you do that, Catherine? Okay. Control all our public. Did you sign both of them already? Okay.
Well, briefly, I'll just do a quick recap.
Please do.
I think initially what occurred is that some concerned community members approached me and wanted to discuss looking at the way the code was written, noting that there was some conflicts or language was some discrepancies. in which it wasn't very clear on the use of gardening as a possibility in front yards, side yards. So after discussing this with the concerned community members, myself, the city planner, Mr. Paul Logue, and Nancy Bain and I met with some of these community members and discussed the issue and looked at the language, compared some other communities and cities around the United States and how they were tackling this need for clear language and possibility to garden in our front yards without problems. So then we brought the issue to council. We had a discussion, and we discussed this in committee here. And upon that discussion, we sent the recommendations to the Planning Commission, which the mayor is a member of, and discussed the issue, I think pretty succinctly. There wasn't a lot of banter from what I heard. It seemed, I think it was a unanimous decision, if I recall. And they made a recommendation to change the language from conditionally permitted use to permitted accessory uses. And perhaps I'll pass the torch on to the mayor for a recap of that meeting and their recommendations from the Planning Commission.
Okay, essentially the vote was taken, I believe, October 21st on it. I believe you got the notice the 29th of October. Essentially what you're seeing is that in the code as it stood now, as it stood before then, it was a conditionally permitted use, which means to have a garden, you'd actually have to go gardening domestic animals, garden raising vegetables, fruits, flowers, and keeping of domestic animals not for sale on properties. You would actually have to go to the zoning board of appeals to raise a garden in your backyard or front yard for that matter.
Including flowers in your flower bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that probably, if you go back all the way to 1994, 92, there were actually two sections of code that covered some of this, which I really won't go into, just because it has to do with, a better definition, a different definition of gardening at the time, and what the implications were of it. Those got eliminated and pretty much left, really it was covering for commercial purposes. It restricted gardening in R1s for commercial purposes. When it got knocked down, it went from conditionally permitted uses rather than accessory uses. Really what we've done is we've moved it back into the accessory use structure. So at this point you don't have to go B230401, B9, which would be gardening, domestic animals, etc., gardening, raising vegetables, fruits, flowers, and keeping domestic animals exclusive for personal enjoyment and residence of premises, not for commercial purposes. So it's almost re-upping what used to be there. I think one of the bugaboos that have come up to me since then, of course, is the definition of domestic animals. There's a concern that we've opened the door to all sorts of
Milk cows.
Milk cows that we just milk for ourselves.
As big as a dog.
So I think this needs a little bit, we probably need a definition of domestic, or something that fits. Does this domestic include dogs, cats, ferrets, boa constrictors?
Why don't we just make our own list of what is allowed?
Oh, that's an idea.
Instead of worrying about the definition of domestic, and just say cats,
We could do
dogs,
that.
parakeets, and, the other things. I'm sure we're going to get inundated with more than a few suggestions, and that's fine.
There is a section about nuisance animals, so that would actually supersede this. I think it's in Title IX itself.
Right.
So therefore, if there's a problem, there are remedies. Although we do not have a dog warden or anything like that to actually enforce that, I'm sure we can start doing citations of roosters and problems like that, or boa constrictors that have grabbed somebody's pet cat or something. That becomes a nuisance.
That does.
And again, really, we're here for the public input more than anything else. Did I cover everything that needs to be covered?
Thank you. Yes, I believe so. And I think, and I respect your request pertaining to creating a more clear and concise definition of domestic animals. Is something that Member Fall and I had also discussed, and out of a courtesy to our community and the members that have expressed some potential worries there, I think it's worthwhile to continue to have this discussion. We were noting and possibly giving ourselves another week or two here, at least a week, to better define domestic animals or our own definition. For what it's worth, I know on the west side of town I have not received any negative feedback or ideas pertaining to animals, chickens specifically. I haven't received any negativity on that end from Westsiders. Now, I have spoke in the past with other community members on the east side of town that have expressed some worry that we might be opening the floodgates. But I do acknowledge as well, too, the mayor's concerns at enforcement, and noting that we don't have a dog warden. We do have a lot of issues around town. I've received complaints about barking dogs running through people's yards, dog excrement in people's yards. These are all concerns, I think, that I've heard on both sides of town. And again, enforcement's tricky. And if we are looking at defining domestic animals or birds, chickens, roosters, these are things that we would have to make sure we're clear on. In the language that I've other codes across the United States, roosters have been particularly outlawed and defined as not permissible because of the noise-making aspect.
And even then, I think there are still other portions of the law that will have to be changed, especially the weed condition of anything over 8 inches. Discussion with I believe David Ingram, the chair of the tree commission, he points out that if it's not grass and it's not a tree, it's a well-known shrub, it's a weed, and it could have a problem. But I don't think we've ever gone to that extent in terms of, using the law with that stricter interpretation.
Thank you. One other thought I had, too, pertaining to some of the positives that I've heard regarding chickens, if it was defined, if that does get thrown in as a domestic animals issue, is not only, and this would go along and coincide with gardens, would be food security and knowing where our food is coming from. Along with educational purposes, I've had a number of parents who have young children that have enjoyed or could see themselves using that as an educational process, which I think is beneficial. Hands-on experience is often a great way to learn. I don't know if there's any other comments from other council members.
One clarification is Title 99 where we keep our definitions. Do definitions go through the Planning Commission or?
Oh, thank you.
I don't think so.
So in other words, it could be done
You can
later,
do it.
manana, or beyond. So
Okay.
there's your zipper to get out of it right now.
So we could look at,
Yeah, doing the definition at the start of the year if you want.
I propose, because the Planning Commission has worked on this, and we don't want to have to start all over, that I will bring it up next Monday as an ordinance. So, and that if we can define things and look into definitions and put into Title 99 at a later date, that would be really good.
Member Sands, you were going.
The mayor touched on something about if it's not grass and it's not a tree, then what is it? And as I recall, the original...
Well, I just saw the clock click to 7:30. Is there any other points?
Have we gotten anything from the public?
We have public who wants to speak.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this? Please come up to, and if you could state your name and your address.
My name is Rhonda Clark, and I'm the Director of Community Food Initiatives, and my address is Amesville. I just wanted to point out, too, that this came out of the town hall meetings. The town hall meetings created a group on food, and then that group has been meeting. It's called the Athens Food Policy Council, and that was broken down into 6 different projects, and one project is to work on code to make it garden-friendly. So I think the city should get credit for kind of the whole process that this came through. And then the animal issue we were going to deal with later, but when we can work, we did a lot of research on just the garden part, but we didn't do a lot of research on the animal part yet. We thought we would just bring the garden part first, and then, but we're not in a hurry to do the animal part necessarily, and we're interested in bees. I don't know if bees are animals or because they're animals or not, so I just want to let you know that too. But in the long term, we're thinking years, we're not thinking this is going to be done by everything done by 2010 or anything like this. But so I just want to let you know that that's Community Food Initiative's angle on things.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
Anyone else? Yes, Mayor Weil.
I will point out that bees are in that nebulous range of domestic animals. We do have beehives in the city limits right now as it stands.
Yep.
Not mine, but other people's.
Okay. Well, now it's on or about 7:30 p.m., and let's call to order a regular session of Athens City Council. We do have a quorum with 6 of 7 members present. Communications, Member Nisley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I received a communication from the Public Works Director, Andy Stone, today, and this is in regard to what was known as the Key Drive project, now also referred to, I think, as the East State Street access. It's project number 240. The original appropriation for this was, or the authorization for it was $430,000. The expenses now, it looks like, will be $437,000, and that will be invoiced to the city before the end of the year. So we, I believe, need to amend the ordinance, the authorization ordinance that was passed earlier this year from the $430,000 to $437,000. Thought I would bring it up tonight in preparation for discussing it and beginning it next week. Yes.
Is that a final number?
That was the final number.
I mean, is the project finished?
It is, I believe, near finished. Andy was confident with that number of the $437,000. That was tonight at 5:30.
Well, we have till next Monday.
No, we do. Let's be optimistic. It's not going to increase too much.
Okay, so be forewarned. It looks like we will see a slight increase there. Member Sand?
But remember, this is all going to be reimbursed to the city.
Absolutely.
The amount we're talking about is contingency money.
Correct. Thank you for pointing that out.
Be reimbursed totally by the Holzen Clinic developers.
Very good. Okay. I am in receipt of an application for a revocable license for use of municipal lands. Anthony Ferrion, I believe, Lavelle Road, for a picket fence in front of some property he has on Mill Iron. I'd like to turn that over to the chair of our Planning and Development Committee for discussion at the next committee meeting.
Yes, thank you. I will do that.
Okay, I'm also in receipt of our annual letter from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control, and I'll only read the first paragraph. I think it pretty much sums this up, but we get this once a year. The purpose of this letter is to notify you that all permits to sell alcoholic beverages in your political subdivision will expire on February 1, 2010. In order to maintain permit privileges, every permit holder must file a renewal application, and that's also the time that we would object to any that has been problematic in the last year or so, and this has been done in the past. Are there any other communications anyone wishes to share? Reports and communications from other elected officials. Mayor Weil.
Okay, concerning the East State Street project, the notation I have is as of December 4th, the contract's finished paving. Next week's contract schedule will be including finish the sidewalks, some grading, and some seeding. So we're pretty much at the back end of that. The Herald Avenue, of course, is all done. Curtis Mulligan, we had a large change order because of the pump station. We had to move a little bit. I think they're finishing placing service lines and asphalt patching is occurring on that. I have a letter I received this morning from Senator Voinovich. He has a Connecting with Communities initiative going on. This is basically where he's going to be here in this office, in this room, December 17th. Not him, but his staff, rather, I should say. December 17th. 2009, between 4:30 and 5:30. It's mostly connect and hear from constituents and anybody who has wants them, give them an earful, I guess is really what it is. I received it today. I can give you a copy if need be. But as I say, it's a chance to get in touch with your senator.
Or at least talk to retiring Senator Voinovich's aide.
Yes, his aide. But he'll get there, I'm sure. He'll get his services. And that's really all I have right now, just those two projects in this.
Yes.
I just want to say that I've had several people comment very graciously and nicely about the Harold Avenue redo. They were very pleased with it, and they were quite excited, and they were very happy that the pole of death was gone. But I had several comments, so I'd like to comment and say thank you to everybody who did that project.
Again, it's part of our formula money. It costs twice as much as the formula money, so we put some, it was necessary. We also improved actually some of the sewer part was more important from my point of view, but the curb turned out nice. Now we know where it actually stops and starts.
Right. So, thank you.
Thank you. City Auditor Kathy Hecht.
I have two things. Probably about a month ago, I had mentioned at a committee meeting that I had been working with Code Director Paskey and on a contractor registration packet, something we've been talking about for years, and that I was hoping to get it through by the end of the year. But I put that on hold for this month. Law Director Lang has also been reviewing that, and so I just wanted to let you know. I haven't forgotten about it. I will get something out to you, but probably early in the year I'd like to get it in place by spring, if possible. So I haven't forgotten. You didn't not get your copy or anything like that. I just put it on hold. Lots of budget stuff going on this month. The second thing has to do with the delinquencies we've collected. I think I've talked about this before without a number, but thanks to Tracy Meek in Law Director Lang's office, we have been working with them to collect delinquent tax accounts, and we are up to, as of last week, $192,000, almost $193,000. So I hope to have half of that, and we probably expect that to probably be about $200,000 by the end of the year. And of course, most of those taxpayers will then be on the books and continue paying, not at that level. But I was pretty excited about that, and I think we really needed that this year.
So that should help our carryover.
So, well, sure, 74%, about $150,000 in the general fund was, important. So.
More than a little bit important. That's good work. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you for your hard work. Both
and
offices.
thank you, Law Director Lang, for the cooperation.
And speaking of,
Mr. President, I'll just go ahead and return the thanks back in your direction for having come to my office last year and asked us to get involved with this, because apparently that has not, the Law Director's office had not prior to that time been involved in collecting some of that money, and that's just that's money that the city needs that is out there, and we're certainly, myself and everyone in my office is pleased to work with you in helping to collect that money. The only other point that I have is actually on the exact same point that Auditor Hecht just brought up, which was also on the contractor registration, that I have reviewed both administratively the applications and the procedures, and I've also reviewed the proposed legislation, and the actual substance of it is fine. There's a few minor technical legal points that I would need to discuss with you before we submit that, but for the most part I have no real problems with what was submitted.
Great. I'm getting there.
very good. Thank you. Is that all?
Yes.
Thank you. On to ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 13609 is an ordinance granting renewal of a revocable license to Deborah Daniels, owner of 39 Hooper Street, for use of the city right-of-way for a fence. Member Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a straightforward granting of a renewal. We've talked about it previously.
Move to adopt.
Move to adopt, please.
Second.
Sorry. So this is a straightforward renewal of a license for a fence on 39 Hooper Street. No neighbors have come forward with any complaints or such. The fence is already there.
Other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 13709 is an ordinance amending the Athens City Code Title 23 Zoning Code, Chapter 2304, permitted uses in B3 General Business Zone. Again, Member Paul.
Thank you. I move to adopt 13709.
Second.
This was a cleaning up of the code, mostly to do with grammar, and I want to say thank you to Debbie here for being our grammar police, because she made it much easier to read. And it's to make it easier to understand by putting in some colons and semicolons.
Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of the ordinance?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 13709 is adopted. Ordinance 13809 is an ordinance authorizing the replacement of defective water meters. Member Bain.
Mr. President, move adoption of 13909.
Second.
I believe it's 138.
13809. Oh, thank you. It's been seconded twice. That's fabulous. Okay. 13809 was requested by the Public Works Director. He's interested in an additional amount to the typical allocation that we have generally given every year. He's actually pursuing replacing defective water meters at Ohio University and in some other places. And so it seems like an important thing right now.
Other comments? Mayor Weil.
Part of the thrust of this is that we can probably track our water better. A conversation I just had today with somebody who does distribution of meters said they can be as much as 15% off as they get older. So one of the issues you're seeing there is that if you're not, and usually it's in the reason water less. I know that we have some high water rates within the university. The other part is actually move some of them out of the building so that we can get access to them without having to wait for a maintenance guy to turn the key and let us in.
Further comments?
I should add that it's part of a larger program that is in place to also move to reprogram one of the positions away from 2 readers to 1 reader using a remote device.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of those, haven't we?
All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 13809?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13909 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide services for the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program and declaring an emergency. Seems like we just heard about this. Member Nisley?
Thank you, Mr. President. We did indeed. Yes, I move adoption of 13909.
Second.
Okay. This is the subject of the public hearing held just a while ago here in council chambers. It's also been the subject of a committee discussion several weeks ago. And what this would do is allow the mayor to submit the grant application for the city of Athens to work for rural bus routes between Athens and Columbus. And a new route this time on this funding cycle, in addition to that Athens to Columbus, would be an Athens to Cincinnati route.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 139?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 14209 is an ordinance levying special assessments for sidewalk improvements associated with the Carpenter Street project and declaring an emergency. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 14209.
Second.
This ordinance is the last of 3 ordinances that need to be passed to deal with appeals to the assessments for sidewalk repairs in the Carpenter Street revitalization that just happened. And this will allow finalization of the billing process for those assessments.
Further discussion? Member Mayor Weil, it's been a while since I've done that.
Yeah, surprise you again. Actually, I don't mean to correct you, Jim, but I noticed it says we did an R9609 and 11809, 12909, a resolution 2, and this is 14209. So this is like the 4 ordinance and 1 resolution to get a sidewalk assessed. Just so you know. It's worth it, I know.
Let alone all the work the guys did out there on it. Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 142?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. The ordinances for second reading. Ordinance 14409 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Soil and Water Conservation District. Ordinance 14509 is an ordinance amending the fringe benefits package for non-union personnel within the city of Athens and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 14609 is an ordinance authorizing staffing levels, a non-union pay scale, and slotting for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2010, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, and declaring an emergency. Moving on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 14709 is an ordinance authorizing the purchase of chlorine, fluoride, salt, caustic soda, and sulfur dioxide. Member Bain, I won't do my usual joke this year. Boy, you must be making a bomb with all that.
I thought you were going to talk about the F word instead, which is another,
no.
not a joke.
No.
Okay.
Got it.
We've had that joke before.
Yeah.
14709 is an annual ordinance that purchases the reagents we need for the various operations we have. It's all in one ordinance rather than sending it through separately, but if you take a quick look at it, we have retained our typical distribution of funds, which is $293,000, a lot of money, with $14,000 from the sewer fund and a larger amount, $214,000 from the water fund and $65,000 from the street fund. So there you can see the breakdown for the purchase of these various materials. And the question you probably think about is why sulfur dioxide? And we strip the chlorine out of the water before we send it to the stream in the summer with this sulfur. Sulfur dioxide sounds like something you'd want to be rid of, but actually we use it. So that one always comes up, so I have to flaunt my...
Are there other comments? I'm sorry. Yes, Member Paul.
Does this take into account the fact that we're not going to be using the
that's the 210,
the byproduct from the coal plant this winter? Is it an increase in salt? Is this salt for the roads?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that earlier, in reducing the amount of ash. And I was wondering if Mr. Stone had increased the salt.
I think we'd have to have by next time I'll ask him when we have a meeting this week. But I think the price of salt was extremely elevated last year, so.
Okay.
That's what I expect anyway. You have real numbers?
Mayor Weil.
I think, I don't have it with me, but I think he did reduce it for the next year's funding. I think we'd locked in like 90,000 last year. I think he dropped down to like 65 with the anticipating. The price per ton's gone down quite a bit. But again, we anticipate if we're talking about buying sand, we have another issue as well.
Okay. Do you have enough money? Do we have to put sand in here and add 30,000?
I hope not. I think he says he's got it all covered last time
We
we
may
talked
need
to
to
him.
just monitor it for a while.
Okay.
Watching those.
Yeah, the sulfur dioxide is not from the bottom of the power plant. It's a tip.
No, that's a different issue.
I forgot about that.
Other comments? Ordinance 14809 is an ordinance amending the 2009 appropriation ordinance and authorizing interfund transfers. One sentence long, and what all does it mean, Mr. Sands?
A lot of stuff. Mr. President, first of all, I'd like to consider ordinance 14809 under suspension of the rules.
Second.
This ordinance, as we go through it, you'll notice that quite a few of the appropriation changes in appropriations deal with personnel costs, payroll, which we do have a payroll coming next week, so we need to be prepared for that.
Other comments on suspension of the rules only? All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 148?
Aye.
Opposed? The rules have been suspended.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 14809.
Second.
Okay, we'll discuss the various parts. One sentence for the ordinance, but we have 2 pages for the details. Section 1 is reducing an appropriation in the code office by $29,000. That is money that was not spent during the time that we were between directors of the code office. And so that'll be transferred later on. Section 2 is appropriating from the unappropriated balance in our general fund. $16,000 to the Law Director's Office to cover 2009 personnel costs. $13,000 to City Council to cover 2009 personnel costs. $4,981.18 for transfer to, we're going to transfer that to the Underage Drinkers Fund in the court system. That money is a tax refund. The building on Columbus Road, the old State Highway Patrol building, was declared tax exempt for its use, and that money was put into the general fund. We're going to transfer it back into the court fund, Underage Drinkers Fund. $30,000 to the fire department for personnel services. $240,000 to the tourism fund for later transfer. $45,000 to the street fund for personnel services. $15,000 to the water fund for personnel services. And $7,000 to the sewer fund for personnel services. $16,000 to internal service medical to make December payments of insurance. And this, most of those personnel issues, many of those personnel issues deal with overtime, and some of them deal with unemployment insurance, things that come up at the end of the year that we have not budgeted for necessarily. And finally, in Section 2, we're authorizing the auditor's office to make the following transfers. First of all, that money to the Underage Drinkers Fund, and then unappropriated money in the tourism fund. Money is collected as a tax for hotel, motel usage, and part of that money goes to the tourism bureau here in the city. Part of that money goes to the Economic Development Council, and then some of that has just accumulated over several years, and we're using it, we're transferring it to these funds. $65,000 of that to the general fund will cover the increased pay that we were just talking about in a previous ordinance for the non-union workers, and $175,000 will be transferred into the Capital Improvements Fund, number 580, which is the fund we're saving money for the fire truck. All of that, we're asking that you suspend the rules. Because you see all those personnel funds that need to be dealt with.
Other comments? City Auditor Kathy Hecht.
Just one comment. Jim did a great job explaining all of those. Having to do with the transient guest tax and the tourism fund, is the ORC states that that money that isn't paid out for tourism is going to the general fund. And the City of Athens created a tourism fund, which is not a bad way to keep it separate, and that's where we make those payments to the EDC and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. But we do need that money, some in the general fund and some in CAP, and there's no reason to leave it in the tourism fund at this point. But that is set up that way in the ORC.
Very good. Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of Ordinance 14809?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 14909 is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce year-end appropriations introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Oh, this is that notorious one nobody likes. Who wants to explain it this year?
I'm going to let the auditor explain it. But first of all, Mr. President, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't know earlier that I'm asking that we consider this under suspension of the rules.
Okay. Well, and I fully understand why, but do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on suspension only.
The auditor needs to prepare a report to the county certificate.
To amend our certificate, the County Budget Commission.
County Budget Commission. And so there's a good deal of work that goes into this action that we're talking about here, and the report has to be there by the end of the calendar year, so the auditor needs some time to do it.
Other comments? All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 14909?
Aye.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 14909. And I'm going to ask the auditor to speak to this.
Okay, a few years ago in our yearly audit, the auditors asked us to go through and make these reductions. What can happen is that we can predict that we're going to bring in a certain amount of money, and if it is all appropriated and we don't bring in that amount, then there is the possibility that it would be spent, which we're not allowed to do. And so we don't, naturally, we didn't overspend the money, but the auditors don't want those appropriations on the books. So if, we appropriate, or we certify $100,000 is appropriated, we bring in $80,000, we only spend 60 or 70, or even just the 80, the ability to overspend the actual revenue is on the books, and so they want those appropriations reduced. So that involves going through every fund line, every account line, and making sure that we haven't appropriated more money than we brought in, whether we overspend or not.
It's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
We've been doing this, about 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, I'm guessing 5 years.
And it'll cause us more problems at the first couple of meetings of council, I would almost bet you, but there you are.
It's messy, and when we first did it, we went through and tried to reduce them line by line, and the ordinance was, as big as this agenda, so now we just do it in one ordinance, giving the auditor's office permission to do that. And of course, the sooner we do this, the more accurate picture we'll have of what our carryover will be for the end of the year.
Other comments by council? Mayor Weil.
Part of the issue there is, of course, that we actually have appropriated money, we have encumbered money, and I've got the staff going through their POs and making sure they're not spending them. If they've got money left over, is to free it up so it can be dropped into the appropriation and then into the carryover. It's always an iffy thing, because if somebody has a bill outstanding that they're not aware of, or takes longer than 30 days to clear. So that's what you're talking about, is the fine line between how much to reduce versus how much is encumbered and appropriated. But to get a better idea of what's going on, and when she talks about the auditors, you're talking about the
State
auditors, the independent auditors come in and say, you really ought to get this fine-tuned a little bit more. And really, it's just so we have credible numbers, that we know what we're working with.
Questions or comments? I know that's a lot to understand for non-financial people. All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 14909?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 15009 is an ordinance to make appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2009. Finance and Personnel Committee. Yeah, she hasn't got to speak in a while. I think we ought to make her handle that one. Member Bain.
I have been looking at 15009 and trying to figure out why it took so much work to get boiled down to such a small amount of paper. But anyway, the council's part was the 100th, which we said what we wanted, and basically the auditor's office came through. One question I have of the mayor, and I'm going to turn it over to him in about 2 seconds, but is the streets number in 100s correct? $1 million?
It's as close as I know it. I believe that's
I was comparing it to other funds. I was just trying to make sure.
street fund. Last year, we had appropriated $1,054,000. That was for the 27 pay periods.
Okay.
We're down. We realize there's increases within the budget because of union and non-union raises. So it's we're putting it in about $1,070,000. So it's about the same.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I was trying to figure out how, again, it's kind of astonishing how much time it takes, and the mayor spent a lot of time on it. One time, we were having a meeting, and he looked like he'd been in a cave for about 2 days. And it was the computer thing he was doing. But anyway, we take a look at the 100 levels. Those are all the different personnel costs over time, our part of pensions, all the other things that we're accountable for. And you can see that the personnel costs in the general fund are about almost $9.5 million. And you can see what part that plays in the budget total. That's always an interesting way to look at it, out of 11.8 million. And I can't even comprehend 11.8 million myself. The other thing I think is interesting, going back to electioneering and all the rest of that, take a look down the part. The mayor's office, relatively small amount of money. Auditor's office, small amount. But you get down to, let's say, the court, about 10%, and police, about 29.2%. I think we can say that with fire added together, 50% of the general fund is devoted to safety forces. I believe that we are saying what our priorities are here. This is in response to some criticisms leveled against us. It's been this way for a good long time. We could reapportion it, but I think that's pretty loud and clear. The code office, parking enforcement, lands and buildings were also, you can see, 8% of our general fund money goes to lands and buildings, and as you see, that's our maintenance, and we have to do maintenance even if we're tight. And that's certainly part of it. Going down, we can see the funds. You can see tourism is the funds. Potential sources of money, street funds, proprietary funds are also in this other funds area, not the general fund. And again, you can see a fair amount of money looking at recreation community center operations. We're not talking about those in percentages because they combine fees and charges and such. And then continuing over to the water fund and to the sewer fund. And to understand those two, you really have to combine the sewer fund and the sewer debt fund. I expect in the future we'll have, we do have a water debt fund as well. But again, we have then a total budget amount of $31.1 million, I guess, as we see it right now. And of course, the first meeting of the year, we will have an ordinance that will amend this appropriation ordinance 15009. But this is the best guess based upon the past, and the mayor put in a huge amount of time on it, as did the auditor's office, and we thank them for that. This is a very bare-bones type budget. I hope the state senators decide to take action on the proposal that's sitting in front of them, so OU is okay, so our money is more secure, because I don't want to look at next year going in without the little cushion we had this year. It's a minor cushion, but it protected us. No layoffs, and everybody got a salary increase. The other thing I wanted to mention is I think you can see insurance, health insurance is certainly something on the news continuously, but also, and I'm very interested in it, but you can see our medical insurance is $2.4 million, and you can imagine in the future that might be something that we will be looking at as we go on forward. And certainly there will be some other increases. I have some personal requests for increases, but we'll be talking about that next year. So now we'll get to the person that actually did the Lotus morphed into Excel spreadsheet.
No, it was Excel when I got it.
I know it was Excel, but I remember when it was Lotus, and it got morphed, I tell you. All those links you have suffered.
Well, I've cut most of the links for the appropriation page. I'm still working my way through the transaction class, general fund, and I think I just sent that out to you too, so that's the breakdown on that. But the other links for the general transaction classes, tourism and downward, I still have yet to get all those little fiddly bits out of there.
Fiddly bits. Is that a computer?
No, not really.
Paul, before you go on, I just would like, thank you, Member Bain, but we need to recognize we do have a typo in the title of the ordinance ending December 31, 2009. and that should be 2010.
Where's this
Law
number?
Director, can we recognize that as a typo? Thank you. Okay, Paul, please.
Okay,
This is
yeah.
down back here.
As Nancy pointed out, that almost 50% of it is police and fire, but if you start thinking enforcement in terms of parking enforcement code, you see you're tacked on almost another 8 to 9%. So it's a chunk of money that we spend towards enforcement of various kinds.
And that's where our priorities are,
Yes.
And always has.
and always have been.
And again, that's about 76 or 74% of our income tax.
74.
74% of our income tax. That's where 74% of our income tax goes. If you look at it, it's a lot of it's very flat line from what we've done. Again, we're fortunate we don't have 27 pay periods this time around. The other thing that's real lacking in this is the capital outlays. Some of the stuff is high priced, of course, for the streets because we have projects ongoing with the streets. This does not reflect everything, I believe, because we're still getting some awards in for 2010. They haven't actually specifically gave it to us. I think we just received one today or Friday, a letter from Andy saying for the more of the roundabout an actual dollar amount so we can put that in over time. This will be in action. I know you guys, finance person asked me to have it at the general fund at 11.5. I really wasn't able to do it. There's a big lack of seasonals and part-times in here. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try keeping everybody to the line on this. Other than that, it's the hard part of doing this is that when you do something like this, you don't know where it's going to end up in terms of what you're putting a number in and what's going to cause down the line, and that's what takes time. But that's about where we are. The medical insurance is pretty much the same as last year. Conferring with the Human Resource Personnel Director, she's saying that across the board, essentially everybody's been seeing about 11% increase out there. But she's put out a bid to see what comes back, and it's pretty much a straight line because of the PPO that we set up. We're pretty much exactly what we were last year. So we have saved some money by changing that arrangement. And that's really all I have to say. I'll keep looking at it. If there's any glaring, I think I gave copies to the Finance Committee and Kathy and Ray. If there's something grievously missing, we can always amend this along the way. It's easy. It's just looking at numbers and getting, and just skipping a digit someplace, which has been known to happen. I'm not perfect.
Oh, I've never known it not to happen.
Yes.
I've been here 20 years. Any other comments? Yes, Member Sands.
Let me just say that at the end of this meeting, I'm going to suggest that we have a special session next week to read this, and then we'll vote on it at our next regular session. So we will give it 3 full readings as members look at it, and if you have questions, now's the time to bring them up.
We need to talk about the remaining meetings of the
Yeah,
year, and I've got
yeah.
a couple of comments also to make on that. Other comments? Ordinance 15109 is an ordinance authorizing a stop-loss medical insurance contract and declaring an emergency. Member Sands.
Mr. President, this is at the request of the Personnel Director, Beverly Henderson. She's received quotes from 3 companies who deal in stop-loss insurance. Remember, our employees have health insurance. If it reaches a certain amount, the city is no longer responsible for that, but our stop-loss insurance coverage kicks in and pays over that certain amount. And some claims for hospitalization, et cetera, certainly get that high. She contacted 3 companies, and with her concurrence and the concurrence from the Service Safety Director, we're recommending that we stay with the company BP Incorporated, who has been handling our stop-loss insurance. She's had a very good relationship with them and felt that they've paid when necessary without any argument. And we're going to renew at the $75,000 level. This is, as the mayor pointed out, I think just a minute ago, almost a straight 11% increase over last year's premium, but for what we get, this is the way it is. It's a fact of life.
Welcome to healthcare.
Yeah. So I don't have instructions that we need to suspend this, so we'll let it go. We do need to do it by the end of the year. Member Payne?
I just wanted to say that as I was leaving, I was listening to the news, and they were saying that all insurance had gone up, and I think it's important to note that we are self-insured, as is the university, up to the stop-loss amount. And so we won't see those huge increases there, but we do have quite a generous plan.
Other comments?
Good point, thank you.
Yeah.
Ordinance 15209 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application for American Recovery and Reinvestment, ARRA funding through the Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for a safer grant and declaring an emergency. Member Kuhn.
Thank you.
From you all night.
Now's the time. Thank you, Mr. President. I move to consider 15209 under suspension of the rules.
Second.
The reason for the suspension of the rules is that there is a December 18th deadline for applying for this grant.
Motion and second to consider 152 under suspension. Further discussion on suspension. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is suspended.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that we adopt 15209.
Second.
This would allow the city to hire some new firefighters. This would be a 100% coverage of the salaries and benefits. For 2 years, there is no match. However, we would need to commit for 1 year to retain the firefighters for 1 year after that 2-year period.
Other comments?
Question.
Yes.
In the ordinance, it's firefighters plural. How many firefighters could we hire?
I think we were talking about 2.
2?
I thought last time it was 1 when we had it in committee.
I was thinking it was 2.
I remember two.
2.
That would increase our fire.
Well, there was a discussion because we have a opening and...
Right,
One
Captain,
opening.
we have 1 opening.
And there's a retirement coming.
Right, and there's a retirement,
So this is not an expansion of our existing?
I don't believe it is.
Okay.
Mayor Weil?
I believe, I thought we were discussing 2. I know we're going to be short 1 already. We are.
Because of Captain Munn.
Depending on how the
Right.
bumping goes to the captain's level. The other, of course, is I was told by the chief is that there are potential 4 firefighters who may be eligible for retiring. So we could have as we could actually be short. The question is how fast to turn around and actually hire these, bring these on. And that would be the question at that point. If we have to change staffing, I'll let you know.
If we have a change in staffing, by then we will be in trouble perhaps.
Well, if this is 100% funded...
For 2 years.
For 2 years.
Yeah. I'm
I think by
assuming
then
if we've got potential for somebody retiring in the next year, 4 people retiring in the next year or 2, we can probably make up the difference there.
Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of 15209?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. On to announcements and other business. And Member Sands, you touched upon something I wanted to bring up also, and that is we are quickly coming up on the end of a term of council. Now, if we are going into a new year, that is not a new term. In the past, we have been told that we were able to allow ordinances to continue on, but if it's a new term of council, they die at the end of the term. So we need to be aware of that and see to it that the present ordinances are seen through one way or another, or be prepared for them to die at the end of the term and would need to be reintroduced. So I'm hearing that we are looking at a special section next week on the 14th, and then regular session on the 21st would give us
That's
three.
my suggestion, yes.
Is that what that's everybody's wish? Okay. Committee meetings for next week, is there any wishing? Yes?
Please, for development.
Okay, others?
Likely transportation, please.
Sure.
Before.
Yeah. So- Okay. So we can probably,
If we bring stuff up in committee, does that kill it in the committee? I mean, and then we can bring up the ordinance in January?
Yes.
oh, absolutely, sure. No, it's just that things
Any
in the
ordinance.
process
Okay.
have to either be dealt with or it dies and would have to be reintroduced, is all I'm really saying. Yeah.
Picket fence.
Okay. Any other announcements or other business we wish to deal with? An opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that we did not cover on tonight's agenda. There's one gentleman in the audience. Would you like to address council? Seeing none and having addressed all items on our agenda, we are adjourned.
Thank you.